100 NHL players have now scored 1,000 points. 16 of those have done it before age 30. Only one has had to score their 1,000 point twice. That's Nathan MacKinnon. Avs win over the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0. I'll be honest with you, this game was pretty boring for a number of factors, and the Avs have had a number of boring wins lately. Obviously this game, but then you also had the blowout against San Jose, you had the blowout against New Jersey, all of those pretty straightforward, easy ones. But even the closer games, the Pittsburgh game, the Minnesota game, they were close for a time, but ultimately the Avs made it look pretty easy and often relatively low event in the end. That's a really good sign. Good teams this time of year should be winning easy, especially with the type of opponents that the Avs are playing. And even when they do get into a more exciting one, they manage to win those too. They win 6 straight and go perfect on this homestand. The combination of what we've seen from the Avs winning these games, and maybe more importantly, the trade deadline moves themselves, yes, obviously, but the emotion they've shown. In the 2 games since the deadline, that barn burner Toronto game and this one, the Avs' emotions were up. You could tell that that was a team that was invested in trying to win, willing to play hard against their opponents, and do the right things to win. That is what you need from Colorado. And look, I don't think the Avs played great this game. Certainly below the top line, your bottom 9 forwards didn't look all that good. Second line looked a little bit rough, which I didn't love, but you expect some growing pains with a new center there. Your third and fourth lines had multiple guys mixed up. Logan O'Connor out, Jimmy Vesey in. You also ended up with Parker Kelly out and Miles Wood in, and they flip-flopped the centers and were moving stuff around. So kind of a mess there. I understand why they did it. It's the first game of back-to-back. Bednar is looking to keep those guys fresh and having them in the lineup for the second half, a much more important game against Minnesota. So there's plenty of reason for that roughness around the edges. That doesn't bother me. In fact, it even encourages me that the Avs still found a way to win. And the number one reason for that is Scott Wedgwood. He played fantastic tonight. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, it was a pretty low event game. Didn't have to do a ton. But when he was called upon, when he needed to make big saves, he made multiple of them. He's been great for the Avs as a backup. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. He is absolutely a backup. It stops there. You're going no further. But that backup right now is playing significantly better than your starter was at the start of the season. It's how big of a change it's been for Colorado. The game itself was, if not boring, silly. The Avs probably should have had Nathan MacKinnon's 1,000th point just a couple of minutes in, but Marty Necas was offside and the goal gets called back. I actually thought the Avs top line played pretty darn well, especially in the first. MacKinnon was really pushing play and carrying things. He really drove this bus for the Avs tonight. Nobody else on the Avs skaters came even close. It was MacKinnon and Wedgwood, the 2 best players on the ice for either team by far. And then the rest of the first 2 periods is just boring. Outside of MacKinnon, the Avs didn't generate a ton. Chicago just didn't generate a ton, period. Through 2 periods, Chicago had generated just 12 shots on goal, and they didn't even really start generating in the third until after they were down by multiple goals. That team's bad. Sure, if you want to give them credit for defending the Avs well and suffocating them a little bit, okay, they deserve a little bit of credit. The Avs did not play high-event hockey here, but I think a portion of that was the Avs doing that to themselves more than it was Chicago. Ultimately, the actual game portion of this is going to be a short review. After 2 scoreless, boring periods, MacKinnon waits 30 seconds into the third to get his 1,000th point to actually count. Not a particularly special play for a special moment. MacKinnon, down in the corner, working with his partner and teammate in MacKinnon, they're able to win a puck battle. MacKinnon's able to carry it in behind the net, and MacKinnon does what MacKinnon does. He's Nathan MacKinnon, so 5 guys watch him carry the puck. MacKinnon takes advantage of this by using the space given to him, a bunch of guys floating and watching. He uses that space and then ultimately ends up leaving this for Taves. And this isn't even that bad of defensive coverage here. You didn't get MacKinnon really sucking in 3 guys like you do sometimes, but Taves has enough of a lane to get a shot off, and the Avs have it stacked. 2 guys in front looking for screens, including the defenseman, and it's not just a screen. Lehkonen puts the perfect tip on to score. Okay, so that's a pretty cheap 1,000th point for MacKinnon. Still a nice play from Taves to put a puck on with multiple bodies in front, and a great tip from Lehkonen. Like he seems to have a knack for scoring on important goals that Nathan MacKinnon assists on. But sure, you want something more fun, more exciting? Yeah, MacKinnon makes a whole lot of a better play on his 1,001st point. The Avs do a breakout that ultimately just results in a deflection dump in. Nothing crazy here. A good job by MacKinnon to get on pressure and Nate just being up the wall to force the Blackhawks to make a play here. And while this comes up the wall, this should be a pretty easy out. But MacKinnon commits. They roll 3 deep here to try and challenge on this forecheck, and it works. MacKinnon's able to get along the wall, intercept the pass. It's a little greasy, but he knows he got a lot of it. So he does a good job of checking, finding the puck, and able to collect it as Chicago gets caught here. They're not sure what to do off of that play. They're expecting an easy out, maybe a little bit flat-footed. So MacKinnon essentially gets a 2-on-1 here, drags both defenders to him, opening up Natchez, and still finds a way to get the puck over to Natchez, and then Natchez with a great finish. It's not just 2 feel-good points for MacKinnon to put him in that 1,000-point league. It's also important for the Avs that they didn't play all that well and they found a way to win. When they needed their stars to show up, they did, especially after the other night when their depth showed up. Natchez continues to fit in well next to MacKinnon, still at over a point per game clip here in Colorado, almost bang on the same pace he was on in Carolina. And the Avs were able to coast this home. Kiviranta puts in an empty netter at the end of the third, and it ultimately ends up being an easy win for Colorado. All of this is great. All of this is pretty straightforward. I don't think there's a ton to talk about beyond this in the game. Avs defense was really good. Penalty kill was great. Killed a nearly full 2-minute 5-on-3. They do deserve a little bit of credit there, but it was just not that deep of a game, especially against a team as bad as Chicago. There's just not a lot to take from this. What there is a lot to take from is the last 12 years of Nathan MacKinnon. Obviously, Nathan MacKinnon is an unbelievable hockey player. We are in the middle of his prime. We've witnessed the ultimate peak of his play. Hopefully that continues to last for a couple more years, but we don't know. We'll see that in the future. What I can tell you about Nathan MacKinnon's prime is I believe that it is the highest peak of play that we have ever seen in Colorado. And this is coming from a guy who Peter Forsberg was his favorite player growing up. Now, maybe I was just a little bit too young to understand truly how ridiculous the Forsberg and Sakic era was. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. I remember it some, but I do remember the later years more. But when you look at the statistics, this is where Nathan MacKinnon is at. Forsberg did have a higher points per game in his career, but it's not by a ton. And Forsberg's biggest problem is availability, something that Nathan MacKinnon has had very little trouble with, especially in these prime years. Forsberg had an unbelievable peak. He's never even come close to Nathan MacKinnon's 140-point season. In fact, Forsberg has never even scored 2 100-point seasons in a row, and Nathan MacKinnon just notched his 3rd straight. That's more so because of Forsberg's injuries, but again, availability matters. And even when you look at Joe Sakic, who, don't get me wrong, today Joe Sakic is probably still the best Av of all time. Unless you count Patrick Waugh, I'm not doing goalies here. Still, Sakic only had back-to-back 100-point seasons once in his career, and that was in Quebec. Never did it in Colorado. In fact, right now, today, if you look at their Colorado tenures, Nathan MacKinnon has a better points per game pace than Joe Sakic has. That's how good Nathan MacKinnon has been. And I know there's still a lot of future left. If things go terribly, then who knows? Nathan MacKinnon gets to be a 1,000-point player forever, but he'll never make it up into that truly greatest of all time style of echelon. But if things go well, if Nathan MacKinnon has 3, 4, 5 more years of elite play, if he can be an elite player into his mid-30s, if he can play into his late 30s or even push close to 40, we may genuinely be talking about a top 20 player of all time. That is realistically in the picture of Nathan MacKinnon's career. And yeah, it has to take things going well, but it's not a completely far-fetched idea. Certainly, if MacKinnon can stay healthy, I think we are having a genuine conversation about Nathan MacKinnon being the best Av of all time. At least until Cale Makar finishes his career and then takes that spot from him. But I think this is an important thing to talk about. It's an important thing to remember, and it's an important thing to live in the moment a little bit and experience Nathan MacKinnon. Because there is a very, very good chance that no one will ever be this good again at forward in Colorado. That's how good Nathan MacKinnon is. That's the end of this game video review. Thank you for watching. Head on over to DNVR.com for all of our coverage. I am Rudo, and Nathan MacKinnon is fun.